Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo, and I'm here to bring you a special episode of Audiobooks for the Win. I have the Gabby Reads, and we're going to be talking about all things horror, thriller, and all things horror, thriller audiobooks. So, this is your definitive guide to get into horror and thriller books with the queen of horror and thriller book recommendations on BookTube, Gabby. So,
Oh
Gabby,
my gosh.
maybe give us a quick intro about yourself, and then we'll start diving into the topics.
My name is Gabby. I have a channel, Gabby Reads, and I mainly read like thriller, horror, and romance most of the time. I read some like contemporary and like historical stuff from time to time too. But I've been on YouTube about like 6 years now, and yeah, I've just been making videos and having a good time. That's
Making amazing videos, by the way.
oh, thank
Like,
you.
how many of your reading vlogs I've seen, I'm like, she does reading vlogs so well, and I cannot even I would just be like me sitting on my bed giving you guys an update, and then
I mean, it's
forgetting,
hard.
and then coming back.
Yeah, I know. I try to like move around sometimes, make it interesting.
Yeah, I just really so hardcore with your puppy before we get into things. I
Oh,
have a 1-year-old puppy now, and I'm just
oh,
like, I can't.
oh, cute. What kind of dog is
Yeah,
it?
she's a Bichon, a
Oh,
little tiny little
cute.
thing. Little
Oh,
tiny little thing, but try
yeah.
having her down here record like doing live shows. She gets very annoyed, like probably 30 minutes and I'm like, can you go off and play?
I bet. Yeah. Most dogs like do not like the camera. They're just like, get the camera out of my face.
She's just like, no, sorry, no, but I want attention, but I don't want to be on camera.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
But the first question I have for you is how did you even get into listening to horror and thriller audiobooks, or you can say thriller slash mystery, because they technically kind
Yeah.
of get meshed together. So how did you kind of get
Yeah.
into these types of audiobooks?
Well, first it was just kind of like my library would just have like random audiobooks available that I would just like
Hmm.
pretty much listen to like whatever was available. So like
Yeah.
I think my first horror audiobook was actually the Stephen King like Bizarre Bad Dreams or whatever. It's like a collection of short stories, and I actually think short stories are really fun on audio usually because they either have like multiple narrators or they have like I think for that one Stephen King actually narrates the whole thing, so that's pretty cool. But
Oh.
uh, but yeah, I got into that one first, and then I was like, okay, this was really cool, and it was a really cool listening experience. And then also um as far as thrillers go, like I never really enjoyed listening to thrillers on audio unless I was like rereading it because I
Mhm.
don't know why. It's just like with thrillers, I do like the suspense of like reading it with my eyes and kind of being like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen.
Mm,
But then
mhm.
also like I don't know why. Like after a few years of like I haven't read it, like that thriller in a few years, and I start to forget kind of like some of my favorite plot twists and stuff. So I kind of like the experience of like re-listening to it again on audio because then it's like a whole new
Yeah,
experience because then you're like the narrator's like telling you this spooky story. And it's like
yeah.
it's just like unexpected. I think you know.
Yeah, and do you have a preference for your horror slash thriller books to be like multicast or just a single narrator? Does that help your
Yeah,
enjoyment?
I don't know. Like, I don't think I have a preference necessarily, but I do think it is really cool when there's like a big like cast, like a full cast on an audiobook. I think that makes it a little bit more fun.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I don't really have a preference, I think.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that I kind of want to tease out a little bit is kind of that anticipatory kind of thing that you have
Mhm.
when actually physically reading a thriller
Yeah.
because you know you can like skip down like 2 chapters and be like, oh, this is the
Yeah.
killer versus an audio. Do you think that helps drive the suspense a little bit more? That you
Yeah.
don't physically know what's coming next because you can't actually see it?
Yeah, I feel like too, sometimes with audiobooks, I'm not even paying attention if I'm like near the end of a chapter or not. So sometimes I won't even know
Mm,
that like a big twist is about to come up. And then it's kind of like fun when you're just like listening and you're just like waiting for the ball to drop and you're just like expecting like it's a totally different experience than like reading it physically.
mhm.
So
And how does that necessarily work in horror? Does it help like make the scenes a lot scarier than if you read them physically, or is this more about creating the mood around you?
I think it depends on the book, honestly. Like there have been some horror audiobooks that just don't really work for me as well as like audiobooks, but then some
Mhm.
of them are like so creepy. And I think it's
Yeah.
because of like either the narrators like doing something with their voice, like usually during like the really creepy scenes when you know something's gonna like happen, the narrator will just kind of like make their voice almost like something's about to happen.
Spooky.
Like yeah, they just kind of get like ooh, and then like they turn around and like I don't know, it's just like like it's just I don't know. There's some audiobooks that I think are really like creepy and effective for like horror books on audio.
Hmm.
It just depends, I
Yeah,
think.
it depends. I kind of
Mhm.
get that. And one of the things that I don't even know if this affects your your listening experience. Do you
Mhm.
have like preferred listening speed that you tend to gravitate towards? Like, does it like
Um,
if I give you like a 3 at times, which is my listening speed, I know
yeah.
I'm crazy. I'm 3.5.
Oh my gosh,
I
that's
don't know
good.
anything else. 2 is way too slow. I'm like, but I was wondering,
Yeah.
like, does it help like going a little bit slow on like a 2.5 speed, or do you find yourself
Yeah.
you have
I
to
don't
slow it
know.
down really so you can pay attention to all the clues?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like listen to different audiobooks like on different genres at different speeds. Like I pretty much listen to every audiobook like depending on the narrator and how fast they talk. Like I
Mm-hmm.
usually listen anywhere from like 2 to like 2.5 or 2.6 is like usually the highest I go for me, but that's really awesome that you can listen to audiobooks that fast. Like I'm jealous because I always get comments on my videos of people being like, "How do you listen to audiobooks that fast? Like you aren't even taking it in." And I'm like, "Yes, I am." Like and I'm like 2.5 is like my comfortable speed. Like I can listen to audiobooks that speed and I can take it in just fine. And like if
Mm-hmm.
somebody else can do it faster or slower, like that's fine. But like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. To each their own. It's like there's no
Mhm.
competition. Like you just
Yeah.
listen to your own. Like don't tell narrators that because then they're like, I work so hard to give you such a
Right.
great performance, and you're doing 2.5 on me.
Right.
But
Oh, dang. I wish I could do 3 times speed though, because I feel like you get through them even faster. And that's
yeah.
awesome.
But oddly, I miss a lot. I
Yeah.
miss a lot of details. Like somebody will mention, like, "Oh, remember when this happened in the book?" I'm like, "Wait, when did that
Yeah.
even happen?"
Wait, what?
There's been books I went back and reread, and I was like, I missed the whole middle section. I did not
Right?
even realize,
Oh my
but like
gosh.
I knew everything that was big that happened in the book. But
Yeah.
I was wondering too, for like especially for mystery thrillers, a lot of times you have like a lot of clues and a lot of red herrings. Do you
Hmm.
think that works better on audio, or is it easier to keep track of them, or just even more complex mysteries, keeping track of them?
Yeah.
Is it easier doing that via reading or listening to them on audio?
I feel like it is easier when I'm physically reading just because sometimes when I'm physically reading, I'm like underlining things, I'm like taking notes in the book, and then
Hmm.
like sometimes I'll also be actually just like taking notes in a separate notebook. And I found too, like if I do listen to like thriller or horror on audio, I do need to take notes on like, especially because like some
Oh,
books have such
really?
huge casts of characters
Hmm.
that I can't keep them all straight in my head. So like I have to like list out which character is which, and then like I usually write down like my predictions or like big things that happen in the plot just so I can like keep track in my brain. But yeah,
Hmm.
sometimes it can be a little confusing to listen to like some thrillers and horrors that are like big casts and
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like there's a lot going
Hmm.
on. But
So especially in those audiobooks, do you think it's one of the turnoffs if you find a narrator that doesn't do distinct voices for each of the characters? And then you
yeah,
have you ever had a situation where you started on the audiobook and you're like, I can't do this. And then you
yeah,
pick up the physical book and it improves your reading experience greatly.
yeah, I think so. I can't think of any specific one that comes to mind, but I'm sure there have been times where I'm like, oh, I don't think I can do this on audio. Like I'll just listen physically. But
Oh, okay. That's like I'm like one person that I'm like I hate physically reading books.
really,
Like it's like the bane of my existence.
oh
And like so
man.
many romances, they're like, "Oh, read this book." I'm like, "There's no audio."
Yeah, I know. That's so weird that books can get published with no audio. It's like what?
And then like I was like, I wanted to read like The Maidens. I saw it in your one of your reading vlogs. I was like, but
Yeah,
the audio hasn't dropped yet. So I
I
will trust
know.
Gabby's review on this book right
Oh,
now because I'm probably not going to get it into the audio drops, which defeats the purpose
yeah,
of an arc.
yeah.
But
I know that is weird how sometimes like they don't drop the audio at the same time as the physical either. Like, what's up with that?
you have to like Google and like bother the author. I'm like, okay, when's the audio
Right?
coming out? They're like, it's coming soon. I'm like, give me a date.
Yeah,
I won't read your book until
exactly.
I
Like,
have that
really?
date in hand.
Yeah.
But now kind of shifting gears. So now, where do you think someone should start if they're like just like getting into audiobooks, but they want to specifically get into thriller slash horror audiobooks? Where do you kind of recommend where like the baby steps are that are like easy, engaging reads that they can dive into pretty quickly?
Yeah, I would probably recommend anything by Riley Sager. I think a lot of his audiobooks are just like really good to get into because for the most part, he usually only has like one narrator, so they're not too like
Hmm.
complex or like there's not too many characters and like things like that. And for the most part, his books are really like action packed and interesting, and it just kind of keeps you on the edge the whole time. So I feel like
Hmm.
his would be really good audiobooks to start with. And then I actually think Gone Girl is a really good audiobook too. That was one that I read physically and then I re-listened to it on audio and I had a great time with that audiobook. I thought it was
So
really
good.
well done. Did you like Gone Girl or no?
I love Gone Girl.
Oh,
Like that is my like it's
yeah,
just dark and
it's
like I
so
haven't
good,
found another thriller that does that for me.
right?
Like the ending is so bleak.
Yeah,
Like I was like, oh my goodness. Like he's
so
I don't want
good.
I'm not gonna spoil it for anyone who hasn't. But like there's been a movie like it's been out for a long time. I think everyone knows the
Yeah,
twists by now, but oh my
yeah,
goodness. Just like the this like
so good.
I,
Yeah, Gone Girl literally got me into thriller books. Like that was the first thriller I read, and I was like, this is it. Like I'm
I
obsessed.
need to know like have you found any books that like are similar to like Gone Girl, like that dark, really dark
Uh,
tone?
I know, not anything similar to Gillian Flynn's writing. No, like her writing is so unique. Um, but I know that book is just so good, and it's hard to compare anything. Like I know everyone wants to compare everything to Gone Girl, but it's like there's
Hmm.
nothing really like Gone Girl.
Yeah, like it's the only like I read all of her backlists,
Mhm.
surprisingly, and her
Yeah.
backlist is even darker.
Oh, I bet. I know. I've only read Sharp Objects and The Grown Ups, but I haven't read Dark Places yet.
Ooh,
So,
Dark Places is my favorite, but that
mm,
one is really
I've heard
that
it's
one's
pretty
really
dark.
dark. It has like devil occult
Ooh.
worship stuff in it.
Okay.
Like I think it's like told in two different timelines, and you find out what happened, and
Oh
it's
wow.
so sad.
Really?
I was like, Gillian, who hurt you in
You know,
writing this book? I was like,
I
this is
know.
some dark, heavy stuff. So like, I second that recommendation. Like, Gone Girl, if you haven't read it, please just read
Okay.
it. Do it on audio. Do
I'll
not do
note
it
that.
on. Do not read it. Do it on audio. But for Riley Sager, I feel like is he like more? What would you classify him? Because I feel like I get Final Girls is a little bit more of like a horror ish
Yeah.
vibe, but like then he's more his later like even survived the what was it Home
Yeah.
Before Dark that has
Yeah.
like a little bit of like a horror feel. So like where would he is he kind of like straddling both fields or
I
more
think he
horror?
definitely straddles both genres a little bit. I think like Final Girls is more like thriller slasher type of thriller to me, which I don't know if that would be considered horror or not, but I don't know, but I think Home Before Dark definitely has the most horror vibes out of all of them because, it involves like a
Hmm.
haunted house and like it kind of feels like Haunting of Hill House in a way. So like that one
Hmm.
definitely feels the most horror to me out of his
Yeah.
books that have been published so far,
Hmm.
but yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I forgot we didn't even really delineate like the difference between the three because I feel like
Yeah.
horror technically can have some like thriller mystery elements
Mhm.
and same like vice versa. So I just was curious like how do you kind of distinguish the two? Especially I think
Yeah.
first let's like thriller versus mystery because
Mhm.
they're very much intertwined, but they can mean very different things. So like what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, the thing I think I've realized most is that the difference between like a thriller and a mystery in my brain is just like a thriller is a book that has like intense action and keeps you on the edge of your
Hmm.
seat, like it's thrilling. But like a
Hmm.
mystery is more just like there's a mystery at the center of the story. There's something the main character is trying to figure out, and it's usually like if it's in the case of like a murder mystery, that's why it's usually like a thriller mystery because there is action and suspense. But like I feel like a mystery is more focused on the actual mystery of the story, whereas a thriller is more focused on like the action and the like, suspense
Hmm.
aspect of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But
And then, do you consider like a horror like its own real true separate genre, or do you feel like it's more mixed in? Because I
I
feel like
don't
I can't
know.
describe like what a horror
Yeah,
novel really
I
is.
feel like
Because Stephen
that's
King is
tricky.
considered
Yeah.
horror, but like a lot of his books are like
Hmm.
not really horror. They have
Yeah.
elements. They can classify them like contemporary.
Yeah.
Like I can't even remember. I don't know. I'm not gonna even pretend that I've read a ton of Stephen King. I only read it, and that was
Yeah.
traumatizing on audio.
Oh,
I was like,
I bet. And it's a
whew.
long audiobook.
I was like, I've been with these characters for like way too long,
Way too long.
like way too long. I was like 40, I think it's like 44 hours.
I know, yeah, it's ridiculously long. I read it
It
physically, and
was,
that was like torturous too.
I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine holding up the book. My arm would just like fall off.
You're like holding this heavy book. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But but yeah, that's a really interesting question because I don't know. Like I've even been asking myself that so much. Like what defines horror? Like what is horror? Because it's like it's so
Hmm.
confusing sometimes, and there's all these like subgenres within horror. Like there's like body horror, there's like paranormal horror, like different stuff like that. So like I pretty much just think horror is anything that could like scare you or anything that like is
Hmm.
like something you could fear potentially, or something that's like unsettling, like just anything like that. Because I do think like there are some books that I would classify as only horror books and not so much thriller or mysteries. Like for example, like Pet Cemetery by Stephen King. Like I don't really consider that to
Hmm.
be like a thriller or mystery that much. Like I consider that mostly to just be horror. Like like I don't know.
I know vaguely what happens from like watching the trailers. I think
Yeah,
everyone dies.
pretty much.
It's
Yeah.
been it's been out forever, so like don't come for me in the comments if I spoiled Pet Cemetery. Like I think
Mhm.
everyone knows at this point what happened. Like I don't
Yeah.
know how you do it. Like I can't listen. I find it like so hard to listen to horror on audio because I get so
Mhm.
scared.
Yeah.
I'm like super super a scaredy cat. Like I'm the one. Like my limit for horror movies is like Scream. Like that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
only movie, and even then, anytime I watch it, I have to like watch it first, like on mute, so I
Yeah.
know what happens with the subtitles on,
No,
and then I
same.
rewind it, and then I try to like do it, but then I get scared again.
No,
Yeah.
same. It's so weird. Like I love horror books and I can listen to horror audiobooks, but movies are like a whole different ballgame. Like movies are
Yeah.
scary, and I think it's like the fact that it's like the music in the movies and like the suspense and like not knowing what's gonna happen on your screen. Like it's totally different. So like I totally feel you on that. Like I can't watch a scary movie unless I'm like with my sister watching it because like I can't do it alone. But like even still, like I can't go to theaters to watch them. Like I'm the same way where I kind of want to like put it on mute just to like see what I'm getting into. Like no.
I'm like pretty much I'm like the worst. Like I watched Halloween and then I think
Oh.
for like 2 months I had dreams that like Michael Myers was coming to kill me. And like I was like super anal in my dorm room. I would like make sure everything is locked like 20 different times.
Yes.
I was
Oh
like
my
obsessed. I'm
god.
like, Michael Myers is going to kill me. I'm like I'm not the lead character in this movie, so like I probably wouldn't make it to the sequel.
Oh my god, I love
But
it.
I wonder, has there been like a horror book, audiobook that has like really, really scared you that like you can't like, anytime you think of it, you're like, that one really got me.
Oh gosh. Well, I didn't listen to this one on audio, but I
Okay.
imagine that this one really would have done it on audio because I couldn't even read this book and I was like, no. I was starting to read it and I was like, no. I was reading it in the dark at night, which is stupid anyway. So like oh, oh my god, it's this book called The Patient by Jasper DeWitt. It was one of the like scariest reading experiences I've ever had because it's just about this like little boy who we just like learn about him and he's this patient in this like insane asylum and it's just talking about the stuff that this little boy has done and then we kind of like follow him into adulthood too. But like oh my god, the way it was written was just so creepy and I can just imagine on audio, oh my god, it's probably like it probably tries to like do its voice and stuff. Like I can't even imagine it. Oh, it's probably so
I,
scary.
I, so I probably will never read that book.
Yeah, no,
It'll
would
probably
not.
it'll probably scar me for life. I'm like, Gabby recommended me this book, and now I
Oh,
can't read any other horror
yeah,
books because I'm too scared.
basically, yeah. It was like, it was much for me. I was like, whoa, like late at night, I was like, I can't read this right now. Like I'm having nightmares. But that one was
Oh
good.
wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. What was I had another question, but it oh, I think my video is lagging a little bit. Okay. Okay. No, I think we're good. Am I
Yeah.
lagging on your end?
No, I think you're okay now.
Okay, okay, good. I was like, I saw my video lagging. I was like, hold on, hold on. But I would say maybe a good question is I feel like horror audiobooks are really kind of hard to get
Hmm.
into for a lot of people. Do you recommend like people just start with like the recommended Stephen King route,
Yeah.
or do you recommend more like a hybrid author like Riley Sager that kind of gives you a little bit but not too much?
Yeah.
Or which
I don't
do you
know.
recommend? Like, which direction do you recommend people going in?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're trying to start to get into horror and you don't know where to start, I mean, I think Riley Sager is a good place to start because he kind of has that line where he's like in thriller and horror a little bit, so it's not too much
Mhm,
intense horror scenes if that's not what you're looking for, you know. But I do
yeah.
think Stephen King is a good place to start just because he is like, you know, the king of like horror novels and whatever. So
Mhm,
I think he is a good place to start, and I do think something like Pet Cemetery is probably a good place to start just because it's not too complex and it's also not that long. Like for a Stephen King book, it's only like 300 pages, so it's not like an insanely long book,
really?
you know. And it's
Oh
also
wow.
narrated by Michael C. Hall. I don't know if you've ever watched Dexter, but
Yeah.
he's the one who narrates Pet Cemetery audiobook. So I always thought that was pretty cool to hear him narrate it.
Oh, that's cool. Like, I
Yeah,
have to check that out. I didn't know he narrated. I'm like, after
yeah,
it, I kind of like stayed away from Stephen King. I
yeah,
was like, that book. I was like, whew. I was
yeah,
like, I'll take the movies. The movies are the new part one and part two. I can leave
yeah,
about. I just
yeah,
like the kids stuff. I don't like the adult stuff. I feel like
yeah.
everyone has a consensus.
Same, yeah.
And then I did want to ask you too, more on the mystery side. So, do you tend to like books that are more like, I guess like mystery would consider like more police procedurals, detective, I forget, like Lisa Gardner or Louise Penny
Yeah.
or some of those authors?
Yeah, I know. I tend to not like any thrillers or mysteries that follow from the point of view of like a detective or like something in the legal. Like I find them to be really boring. Like there are like a few exceptions of some that I've enjoyed, but like for the
Hmm.
most part, I just tend to get really bored reading from a detective's point of view for some reason. Like I like it in movies and TV shows, but for some reason in books it just like really bores me for some reason. So I always tend to say like I like the books better where you're following kind of like not the people who are trying to find out about the murder, but the people who were actually involved in the murder. Like, so you either like I'd much rather be following like the family that's involved with it, or even like the murderer themselves, or like you know something more
Hmm.
interesting like that, as opposed to just like a detective trying to figure out what happened to this person. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, I completely get that. I think one of the books, I think you read The Chestnut Man, right?
know. I DNF'd it
And I
after
think you
like
didn't like,
200 pages, but
and I absolutely love that book.
yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I just like I couldn't do it at the time, but I do want to get back to that book eventually.
Yeah, I think it's gonna become a Netflix series too, I think.
That's what I've heard. Yeah,
It's like I was like surprised. Like I'm usually not one for police procedurals in books, but like this one actually
yeah,
really worked for me. So I was like a little bit surprised. I was like, okay, okay,
yeah,
like I see what you're doing. Like this is pretty good. Like it's pretty creepy. Because
yeah.
like I totally get what you're saying. I think the experience that you get is very much different because it's usually is usually not the detectives get being hunted. Usually
Mhm,
they come in after the victim has already been killed or something and the murderer
mhm.
has already gotten away. So I think you're already removed from the story. So I guess
Yeah.
like that's where like they separate mystery slash thriller
Mhm.
because like detective stories tend to not be always, I would guess, not thrilling. They tend to
Yeah.
be more
Yeah.
like you know they're gonna be safe, you know like they're probably gonna like solve the case and move on to the next one. And I
Mhm.
get like that investment. And I think like maybe like that's why that investment works so well in audio because you're actually
Mhm.
in the characters, you're in what is actually happening in the story instead of like
Yeah.
someone outside like going like, oh, this person was killed by like this person. Like you know
Yeah.
the detective's not gonna die. Like I don't think I've read
Yeah.
a procedural where the detective dies. Like
Yeah. Well, and
because they
especially
usually
because
want to do a series.
they're usually like series books where there's like 8 books following the same detective, so it's like there's not a lot of high stakes there.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
just like imagine if Gone Girl was written from like the police perspective. I'm like, oh, that wouldn't have been
exactly.
good. Like
That's
it
what I
wouldn't
mean.
have been the same.
Yeah, like I'd rather read about the person that's being accused for the murder. Like I want to read that story more than I would want to read like just from the detective's point of view. I think that's more
Yeah,
interesting.
I
Hmm.
completely agree. I think a really good question is after people kind of get their toes wet in like the beginner pool, where do you think they should go after? They kind of like if they like Riley Sager, if they like um Gone Girl by Gillian, like where do you think they should
Hmm.
go next? So they go like maybe different types of like subgenres like sci-fi thriller or something. I don't
Yeah,
even know if that's a thing.
Yeah, I think John Mars has a few good sci-fi thrillers that I really love, like The Passengers and The One. And I've heard that I didn't listen to those ones on audio, but I heard that those have full cast audiobooks too. So I've heard that those are like really immersive experiences to listen to those on
Mhm.
audio. But I don't know, like some of my other favorite like thrillers are like The Guest List or like The Silent Patient or The Turn of the Key. Like um
So good.
yeah, I don't know. Or like there's this one, His and Hers by Alice Feeney. That one's like actually a really good audiobook that I really enjoyed as a thriller because there's like a third person narrator on that one that's from the point of view of the killer, and it's this like creepy muffled voice that like comes over the audiobook, and it's like from the point of view of the killer, but you can't understand their voice. Like it's really cool. So that was one of my favorite like thriller audios that I've listened to recently. But uh but yeah, any of those
Oh,
I guess.
oh, that's cool. And
Yeah.
then I'm sorry, I'm like kind of like jumping all around. Like as we're talking, I'm figuring out like finding new
No,
questions to
you're good.
ask you. Um, do you find it easier on audio to like predict like who did it? Like figure out
Um,
like who's behind everything? Or do you
I
find
don't
like it's easier like when reading the book, like you're like, oh, I recognize that. Like that's a
I
nod to
don't
this
know.
character.
I don't know. I haven't really thought about the difference to be honest, but I feel like I think it's a little bit easier for me to predict when I'm like reading it physically because I'm like I don't know, I'm like more invested I think when I'm like underlining and like really like putting all of my thought into it whereas like sometimes when I'm listening to audiobooks, I'll be like listening actively, but then sometimes I'll miss like one thing maybe and then I'm like, like I get confused and have to go back, but like I do think I maybe like more physically I can predict it, but I don't know. I'm usually the kind of person that like I don't make a ton of predictions when I read thrillers just because I find it like I get more surprised when I just kind of just go with it and don't think too much about it. But
Mhm.
uh, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's cool. Like legit make no predictions while
Yeah,
reading. Like I do not care. I'm just like give me the big twist, and I'm like, oh wait, I didn't see that
yeah,
coming at all because I literally wasn't paying attention. The only book that I
yeah,
remember paying attention for like was And Then There Were None by Agatha
yeah,
Christie because I was like, this makes zero sense. Like, who is the killer? Everyone is dead. And then the
yeah.
epilogue, I was like, hats off to you. Like, I can't even like what? Like,
Hmm.
just like blew my mind.
I know.
And
I need to read that one.
you haven't read it?
I know. No, I haven't read it. It's a classic. I know. I need to read it.
Oh, thank goodness I didn't spoil it for you. I was about to say like it was this character all along. But you have to
Yeah,
read that one. That one is
I
so
know.
so so good. It's like an
Is it good on audio?
OG. I think I actually read this one.
Oh, you did. Oh, shoot.
I think so. It was like in high school. I
Yeah,
had to read
yeah.
it for a book club, and I was like, oh my goodness! Like I was like,
Mm.
I couldn't believe it. And then the epilogue, I was like, usually that does not work. Like when you
Yeah.
spend the whole book in the black, and then like all of a sudden one chapter, like casts everything. You're just like,
Mhm.
wait, hold on. Like even to this day, I can't remember who the character is. Like that's behind
Right.
like what behind it. Like it always surprises me every time because like she does such a good job of like
Yeah.
misdirecting throughout the entire book.
Mhm.
So I guess the ultimate question to kind of like wrap us up, what do you prefer? Do you prefer reading your thrillers slash horror slash mystery books, or do you prefer audiobooks? Or are you 50
Um,
50?
yeah, that one's tough. I feel like so far in my reading time, so far I've preferred reading them physically just because I do like the suspense of like seeing what's coming up on the page and I find it really exciting just to be like flipping pages in a thriller book. But I don't know, like lately I feel like I am starting to lean more 50-50 just because I am listening to more horror and thriller audiobooks. Like I like before this year or like last year, I feel like I never used to listen to thriller and horror on audio because I just really enjoyed the like physical reading experience of it. But within the last year or so, I have listened to a lot more on audio, and I do think I'm starting to lean more like 50-50, but it's hard. But there are some genres that I 100% like prefer audiobooks over physical books. Like it just depends, I
Mm-hmm.
think, on the genres for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
So 50, okay.
Yeah,
Hopefully you'll like nudge more over to the audiobook side. Like hopefully we can
yeah,
push you over to that side more and more and more.
right.
Unless you keep on getting arcs for all like these like upcoming big thrillers,
Oh,
I'm like, yeah, you're gonna have to wait a while until
I
those drop
know.
on audio. I
I
was like, I
know.
wish they got the audiobooks like done earlier, but like I get it. I get it. I get like why it takes so long, but
Yeah.
yeah. But yes, thank you, Gabby, so much. I think this was a
Sure.
really cool conversation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will get a lot of tips on how to get into thriller, mystery slash horror audiobooks, and
Yeah.
also kind of like how to navigate the space. And I wanted to ask you any final recommendations that you would like to make?
Um, I don't think so. Nothing like comes to mind right away.
I'm
Um,
surprised you haven't mentioned The Troop by Nick Cutter. Like,
I
I
know.
think I've seen that in so many of your
I know.
videos. And what is that, Kill Creek?
Oh,
I've
Kill
seen
Creek.
that
Yeah.
so many times. I was like, Gabby hasn't mentioned them at all.
I know.
Like,
I don't know if I would recommend The Troop on audio just because that book is so disturbing that I feel like if you listen to it, you would literally like get nauseous. So I don't know if that would be a good one for like an audio experience, but I don't know.
you can put
Maybe.
that like on the advanced level. On the advanced
Yeah.
level. I was like just waiting. I was like, she hasn't mentioned it yet. So like, let me ask her like one more time, see if we can get the Rex at her.
Right? You're like, recommend The Troop.
I was like, how many videos have you mentioned The Troop?
I know, it's such a problem. I feel like
Like, even I want to read it.
I know, I feel like I've encouraged so many people to want to read it, and then they get like mad because they're like, this is disgusting. Like they get mad at me. They're like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you like this book? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like I have really weird taste. But yeah, The Troop is like nauseating. It's like really intense body horror, so I just don't know if that's something people would want to listen to on audio.
Okay. Well, at least I understand the reasoning why. I was like, I know these are some of her favorite books. Like
Yeah.
I see in your vlogs. And so I was like
Oh
maybe
man.
maybe they're too intense to
Yeah.
recommend. But and then finally, I want to ask you, where can everyone find you? And then if you have any upcoming projects that you want to plug or upcoming videos that you can tell us
Yeah.
about.
Um, yeah, so you can find me on YouTube under Gabby Reads. On my Instagram, it's at underscore my fictional world. And yeah, as far as like upcoming plans, I don't have too many plans. I mean, depending on when this goes up, I don't know, but I'm pretty soon going to be uploading another Stephen King reading vlog this weekend, probably. So that might be up by the time this goes up. I don't know. And then yeah, I don't know. I have a few different plans for April. Nothing's too set in stone yet, though. I'm kind of just mood reading at the moment.
Movie
But
reading? Okay. But we're definitely getting more reading vlogs from you.
oh, for sure.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. Like
Mhm.
if you didn't post any reading vlogs, I'd be like, hey, Gabby, I need you to step up the reading vlog game. I'm missing some.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to know what thrillers I'm supposed to read that I probably won't get to because I get
Yeah.
distracted by 20 different romances that are all
Uh,
coming out at the same time.
I know I'm actually reading The Stand by Stephen King next month for a reading vlog, and I'm like, oh, so nervous because that book's like 1,100 pages. So like,
Oh,
but I'm doing the audiobook too. I'm doing the audiobook and gonna read it physically, so I'm gonna go back and forth to help me get
oh
through it.
wow. I wish
So
you all the luck because
okay,
after
gonna
it,
read it.
like I can't, I don't trust him for like that long of a book.
Yeah, I know. It's
That
probably his
ending traumatized me. I was like, Stephen King, you need an editor, man. Like half
seriously.
of this could have been taken out. Just like throw out all
Yes.
the stuff, make it
Mhm.
only the kids, and then that could have been a book.
Yeah.
Like even
Super.
he recognizes the end for that book is like horrible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What a mess.
I think the ending makes zero sense, but like that's another whole other conversation. But
Yeah.
thank you so much, Gabby, for coming on this episode.
Yeah, of
I
course.
hope to everyone watching, you got some great recommendations, and yeah, I just can't believe I got to talk to you, Gabby. So like, thank you
Yeah,
so much
of
again.
course.
I will link all her social media and her channel down below. So you guys, if you haven't, go out and subscribe to her. Like, what are you doing? Go follow her on Instagram and everything.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I will catch you guys with a brand new video.
Yeah.
Bye,
Thank you. Bye.
everyone.
Bye.